Hey everyone, it's Mr. Cellular coming at you with another video on arrays. So we're on our way today to lesson 3. Today I'm going to teach you kind of how to traverse a one-dimensional array. There's an activity I'm going to do in class where we kind of see using storage bins and essentially candy to try to traverse through a one-dimensional array. The idea of traverse, all it means really is just to kind of access each element one at a time and keep moving on. So in this case, what I'm going to show you is I'm just going to put in whatever random stuff here. So I can run this thing is I want to show you, well, let's go ahead and run it and then I'll kind of explain what's happening. Should be on rabbit mode. Okay. So essentially we have some sort of painter is a painter or a painter, sorry, named Sarah. Can't talk. And she's going to go ahead and print 3 colors. Okay. Seems like not a big deal. What I noticed is that we made a one-dimensional array called paint colors that has a string data type. So it has red, blue, yellow, green, purple. Okay, great. She is going to spawn as Sarah for array painter, and it's going to be in this XY coordinate facing south, right? And this is all in the documentation for methods for painter. I'm going to have 10 units of paint, and it's going to go ahead and execute or hold the array called paint colors in that fashion: red, blue, yellow, green. Okay. We're going to print out Sarah for whatever reason. They want to print the colors. Awesome. And then you can see that Sarah's going to go ahead and paint colors, move, and turn left. Okay, so something interesting I'm noticing when I ran this is she only painted red, yellow, and purple, right? So red, yellow, purple. Where's the blue and green? I didn't see it. So now I'm kind of curious. So I want to see what's going on with paint colors, that method, right? Which coincidentally did also match the one-dimensional array name. Okay, kind of interesting. Let's go over to Array Painter because that's probably where this method paint colors is from. Okay, it took in no arguments. So let's see what's going on. So I go to paint colors. I'm trying to find it. Does it have paint colors? There it is right there. So I notice there's a void return type. Okay, so we're actually doing something, which makes sense. She's just painting. It sets an index value to be 0. Okay. And look, we haven't seen this for a little while. It's a while loop. So it's telling me while that index value, which starts at 0, by the way, is less than colors dot length. So typically dot length means the length of the array. So however many elements it holds. Colors, if you look up at the top, will be the name of the array that's declared in this class, right? And there it is. It's a string data type. It is private. So I can only access in this class called colors. Cool. So I see in this while loop, which I lost track of there. So it's saying, hey, while that index value is less than colors, I want you to move and paint with whatever the index value is. Check out what's happening at the end, though. So the way while loops work is it can run until you don't want it to run anymore. So to avoid potential issues with infinite loops, you're going to run a while loop using an index value of some start value, in this case 0. And the first iteration, 0, is going to be less than the length of my array, which is colors. It's taking in this array right here, red, blue, yellow, green. So the length of that array is 5. There are 5 elements. Okay. So we start with the index value of 0. The first iteration, 0 is less than 5. So it's going to go and execute whatever code we have in here, which is that. Okay. So then it's going to say, okay, move and paint that index value of 0. So it's going to move and paint with red. Okay, I can see that happening in my image there. And then at the end of the first iteration, it's going to go ahead and add 2 to my index value. Now my index value is set at 2. Now I'm going to loop back. Okay. So while 2 is less than 5, which it is, then we're going to move and paint index value 2. So if I look back at my little thing, my array, that's index 0, index 1, index 2 is yellow. So you'll see that skip blue paints yellow. And then guess what? When we do another iteration or another loop, it's going to add 2 to the index value. So instead of 2, we're going to add 2 to it. So now it's 4. While 4 is less than 5, go ahead and move and paint with index 4. And index 4 is that last one, which is purple. That's how we're able to paint with every other color. Kind of cool, wonderful. So we're going to be using this idea of while loops to traverse through an array. They basically in modules 1 through 4 as usual, they have you kind of change certain things, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to go ahead and go to a practice just so I can show you what the code looks like, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to code. I don't care what people do, but let's say top US retailers. We'll go with that. Option A. Okay, so in this case, we have, we'll look at the to-dos in a minute, but I always like to take a look at the code, like what's going on to begin with, before I just start diving into what's happening. We have in the main class, right, tester class, we have some sort of string one-dimensional array called US retailer names, and it looks like we have all the typical companies you know of, Walmart, Costco, Walgreens, etc. Okay, and then we have a object called US retailers. It's from the retailers class, which, oh, there it is. There's the other class right there, retailers.java. And it's going to be a new one. And it's going to go ahead and take in that one-dimensional array as an argument to pass as a parameter for the constructor. No other code showed. Okay, great. So now I'm going to go to retailers, which is that other class. This is where the information about each retailer is given. I see that a one-dimensional array of a string data type called store names is like created. So this is merely just a shell of a one-dimensional array that's ready to hold text. When I run the retailer's constructor, right, which is going to create that object for retailers, it's going to take in that one-dimensional array, right, which is ready to receive as a text data type or a string data type for text. And it's going to go ahead and attach it to that object. Cool. I see there's already some sort of method potentially written for get all retailers, but it ain't done yet. Okay. So what I need to do is, if I look at the to-dos as well, they want me to basically finish writing this method right here, where they want me to return a result where it's going to go ahead and show the name of each retailer. And it gives you an example. So pay attention to this. I noticed that the store names are on different lines. So in the back of my head, I need to bust out that \n. First thing I'm going to do is delete the little to-dos because that just annoys me. And then we're going to get coding. So we're going to return results. So if I ran this thing right now, result has nothing in it other than a blank space. Okay. So we want to basically update this. So now what I'm thinking is I need to do two things. In my head, I'm thinking I need to traverse through the array and I want to basically show every name of the retailer, right? So it has Walmart, it has Costco, it has all that in there. There's no way to display it yet, right? And this is an accessor method, as you might recall from Unit 2. So how we're going to do that is I need to basically remember, keep in mind that we're going to access one element at a time. And that's all we can do at once. Okay. So computers, as I joke with my students, are incredibly stupid, but they are very fast. So they can only do one thing at a time, like a small child, but they do it very quickly and efficiently. Okay. How are we going to do that? We're going to use a while loop, but before a while loop, I need to go ahead and declare an index value and set it equal to 0, because that's where we're going to start counting from. So this is going to be initializing my counter for the loop. Okay, now I can bust out that while loop and say, hey, while that index value is less than the length of the array name here was store names, that length. While that's the case, I want you to do something, right? We want it to display each name. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and do store names, bracket index, right? Because I want to show that. And then I want to do something with that. But right now, if I just have store names bracket index, it's just accessing that element and that nothing else. It's not displaying or doing anything. So when you're stuck, remember what you're trying to return because that's what you're going to show. So in this case, I need to do something with the result to add to it. This is where it gets a little bit trippy. In a perfect world, result is going to be some sort of string variable that can hold multiple values in it. Oh, let me take that back. It's a string data type, right? It's a variable. So technically it's going to only hold one value, but it could be a whole bunch of words, can't it? So I'm going to do is I'm going to use result and I'm going to set it equal to store names bracket index. Remember, the first time I run this while loop in the first iteration, all it's going to do is access the first name, right, which is Walmart Stores Inc. in that array we're going to use, and it's going to store that in my variable called result. And then that's it. When I run it the second time, now the index is going to go, or I need to add 1 to my index, don't I, at the end? Right? So there's two ways to do it. You could do index equals index plus 1 to move that index value ahead. Or if you want, you could do index plus plus. I don't care which one you use. I prefer index plus plus. But before you forget like what that means, it's the same thing as index equals index plus 1. Okay. Going back to this guy, we're not done yet. When I run it the second time, now it's going to move index value from 0. It's going to add 1 at the end, right? So it's going to be index value 1. Okay, 1 is less than 12 or whatever the length of the array was. And so it's going to go ahead and store the index value 1, which is Costco. There's only one problem. It's going to override what's already in there. So I had Walmart. It's going to override with Costco. So I don't want that to happen. But here's what's cool. I want to be able to, in a perfect world, keep concatenating and keep adding to this, right? So on and so forth, like index plus 1. That's a lot of work, but here's a cool operator that you need to know for here on out. And that's going to be if you go to this equal sign, remember how down here I did a plus plus is the same thing as index equals index plus 1? Well, if you do a plus in front of the result, it's going to do the same thing where it's going to concatenate. Every time I run the loop, it's going to add more and more names and string it along. Okay. And then when the while loop exits, it can just return the result. Let's run it because I did some code and I'm worried I'm going to get some errors. And lo and behold, I don't get any, which is great. So now I can kind of move on to the next thing. Now in the to do as well, they want me to go back to store runner and they want me to use that get all retailers method. So we already have this US retailers object from the retailers class made, and it's already pre-filled with the retailer names. So now in theory, all I have to do is just do system.out.println, and we're going to go ahead and print the US retailers, right, with get all retailers. And that should print me all the retailers. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. And we didn't do it. Okay, so what happened here? Remember, get all retailers is a method, right? Right here. And it needs to, why didn't it print the results? Oh, I actually need to actually do something with this. So let's go ahead and do US retailers. Did I spell it right? Oh, silly me. I misspelled US retailers. Let's go and do that. Let me try that. I think I spelled that correctly. So there's a syntax error I'm getting. Did it work? There we go. So now when I print, I have the object called US retailers, and I use get all retailers to go ahead and grab all of those names. That's done, but watch. It's not the same as the example. We need a new line. So in order to add a new line, I'm going to go back. It's kind of annoying, but in this concatenation that's happening, right? Every time I run a loop, I need it to also produce a new line. Let's go and clear and run it and just make sure that does it. And there you go. It does it. And now I'm going to hit test. And then I will be done. Okay, let me pause just for a second. All right, so to continue on, I'm going to go ahead. We finished, so I'm going to go to module 7. If I may, there we go. And now let's do, I don't know, we all like video games. Let's go ahead and do that. So again, we're probably going to use while loops again, but in this case, we're going to have to traverse through and probably modify, as my guess, some sort of array. I feel like that's what's coming. Okay, so then in this case, I'm just going to read it. Looks like we have an instance variable of 1D array of string values in video game. Okay, cool. I see consoles. I see American sales. And if you click on it, it'll show you, hey, these are all the best-selling consoles. So they give you the source of where they're getting this information. Okay. I don't know what the best-selling one is. It looks like maybe it's PlayStation 2 appears to be the winner. Okay, cool. Great. So if you want to take a look at total sales, if you don't believe them, you can go ahead and look at that. To do number 1, what we got to do is we got to write the get consoles info to return a string containing each gaming console's name and its total sales. Ooh, that's a little bit different. Now we're dealing with not one, but 2 different arrays in a way. Okay. So let's take a look at what we have here. If I go back to video game runner, looks like we have a string or a 1D array that has all the game consoles. And look here, we have another one-dimensional array that has sales. Presumably it corresponds to each gaming console. Then we have video game NA consoles is equal to new video game, and it's taking in not one, but those 2 different arrays and putting it together. That's a whole lot going on. Then they want me to call this method to return all of that and print the result. Okay, so it seems really scary, but don't worry, it won't be. If you go to videogame.java, I'm just confirming we have 2 different arrays which are created. The reason they're created is when I run the video game constructor, whatever those arrays are, it's going to take them in, it's going to attach it to that video game object. That's the whole job of the constructor. Okay, a little scary, but let's keep going on. Now I see that there's a get consoles info. So this is another accessor method, very similar to the last module we just did. We're going to need to go through those two different 1D arrays and concatenate each value. Okay, so here's what I think I'm going to try, because we just did this in the last module. So I'm just give it a shot. First thing I'm thinking is, why don't we use a while loop and simultaneously go through each one of their arrays and get each value? I'm going to try this out and see. It's a little scary. So I'm going to do int index equals 0. Okay. So it's going to be starting my counter for the loop. Okay. And then let's go and bust out that while loop while my index value is less than the length of either array. Now, in this case, because both arrays, one is going to be showing the name and the other array is going to be showing the corresponding value of what their sales were in millions or whatever that number is, we're going to go ahead and pick one of these, consoles or American sales. I don't care. Let's just use consoles.length, right? Because they'll be the same length, both of them. So let's go and start that while loop. And then what I'm going to do is, I don't know why, but I have a different, there's something wrong, I feel like. Let me try that again. So while, I feel like I deleted some by accident. So while index is less than console.length, parentheses, there we go. We're going to go ahead and just like we did in module 6, which I just showed you like 30 seconds ago, we're going to go ahead and access each one. We're using result, right? So I'm going to do result plus equals. And I'm going to go ahead and use the first one was console, bracket index. And let's go ahead and do another concatenation with America sales, bracket index. So in theory, what I'm doing is I'm attaching both of these. Okay. So I see consoles, America sales, and I'm going to use index in the hard brackets because I'm going to access each one as I loop through. And then I'm going to go ahead at the end of the while loop. I need to do add one to the index value, right? So I'm going to put that in comments because it's kind of new. At the end of each loop. So we're going to add one to the index value at the end of each loop. And then finally, we're going to return the result. Okay. There's one thing I'm a little bit nervous about. So this, actually, let's go ahead and show it and then we can clean it up later. So I have this working. Let's go ahead and run it to make sure there's no errors. And I see that there are some errors. So let me try and fix it. What's the matter? So right now it's not happy because it can't find console. Did I mess something up? Oh, it's consoles with an S. So that was just a easy syntax error. I can fix that, no problem. Run it again. And then now I see no errors. So I'm very happy because we don't have any errors to debug. Let's go ahead and move over to video game runner. I'm gonna go ahead and call that method and print it. So just like before, we're gonna go ahead and print something, right? Because get consoles info prints out or retrieves the values for those consoles. So I'm gonna print ln, and let's go ahead and use, remember, NA consoles there has the two arrays already stuffed inside of it. So if I do NA consoles and call the get consoles info method, I think it's going to print it all right there. And let's see if it does. So I'm going to run it. And there we have it. But the only problem is there's no space in between. So I'm kind of not happy about that. So just like module 7, we're going to do the same thing where I go back. And then maybe I'm going to print. I also need to do the semicolons. So I see that's not missing because I'm going to fail this test. So let's do that. Looks like it wants a space at the end and do concatenation. And then also I need to remember before I forget, after America sales, right, the number comes in, we need to do another concatenation and do a /n to create that new line. Let's run it again. Just make sure it looks good. Yep. There we have it. If I test it, I should be able to pass this, which I did. So I hope that helps. So module 7 is not too bad. At first glance, it's scary because you're dealing with not one, but two different arrays. But again, the process is the same. Declare your index value 0 or initialize your index value 0, bust out that while loop, go ahead and use that plus equal sign for result. In this case, because we're doing two arrays, you're going to do the first array index and the second array index as well. And then it'll work every time. So hope this helps and let me know if you have questions.